No, I don't think you know what authority means.
I know what it means. I'm saying that if I
just a different description of what authority
means. If I have responsibility for her safety, then I have to have the authority to tell her not to do unsafe.
Yeah, but authority means that you have some form of control over this woman.
Yes, people, silent business. You know what time it is.
I'm just a messenger.
Don't shoot. Make sure you like, share, subscribe. Drop some comments. Let's do this. Andrew Tate being interviewed by Piers Morgan. Is Andrew Tate a misogynist? What happened in the kerfuffle?
I'm just a man.
Not simply hear what he says about them or what other people say about them. Tens of millions of people across the world follow Andrew Tate. With a big following comes a big responsibility, as well as a public interest in holding his views to account. If outrageous opinions are read aloud, they can be challenged and exposed for what they are. If they're silenced, the person holding these views can become a martyr. So that's why I invited Andrew Tate to come here tonight, and he joins me now live. So Andrew, well, welcome, first of all. You come all the way from Romania to do this interview.
Correct.
What do you hope to achieve from this interview? Why are you here?
Interesting to have a conversation with you. You've certainly been the subject of your own divided opinions in the world. There's a lot of people who would say some of the things you say are perhaps dangerous or toxic. So I thought you'd be a good person to speak to about this subject.
I didn't know much about you before this year, and then I suddenly became very aware of you, as the world did, because, as I said earlier, you were the number one subject searched on Google ahead of Donald Trump. Yeah. I didn't think it was even possible. Why did you get suddenly so popular stroke infamous, do you think?
I exploded. I certainly didn't do that with magic. I've been on the internet for a very long time. I think in the world we live in now, as the other side, the people who disagree with me, as they get more and more tyrannical in their censorships and their hate mobs, etc., as standard masculine practices are deemed toxic, I didn't put a magic spell on everybody. I managed to accumulate a large amount of affinity with the male populace across the Western world because I'm simply saying things that many men believe, think, and feel.
The problem I would say is I want to play you just a clip off the top. This is from Joe Rogan, who's somebody I absolutely love.
Sure.
And I think it explains to me what I presume my issue with you is going to be, right?
Correct.
And you have absolutely got the right to try and persuade me otherwise.
Sure.
But Joe Rogan said this about you.
My 12-year-old and my 14-year-old asked me about Andrew Tate. And my 14-year-old asked me, I said, he's a legit world champion kickboxer. I go, I like him a lot. Why do you like him? And I was asking him. They said he says a lot of funny stuff on Twitter and TikTok. He f***ed up with the misogynist stuff.
Yes.
Because if he didn't do that, if he just did the pro-male stuff.
So I thought that was interesting because when I've gone over everything that's been at the center of the debate about Andrew Tate, I come down with Joe Rogan in the sense that there's a lot of stuff you say I agree with. You know, I've got 3 sons in their 20s. It's not easy actually being a young male in the modern world. And I think a lot of the things that you say about that can resonate with them. The problem comes with the, 10, 20% or whatever of your output, which on the face of it appears to be blatant misogyny. And when you couple that with your massive influence and huge reach, that is why the social media companies have decided to effectively cancel you. I don't believe in cancellation. I don't believe in censorship particularly. That's why I've invited you to come on the show. But I do think a lot of the things you've said are blatant misogyny. Do you accept that?
So you made a very interesting point there. You just said on the face of it appear to be blatantly misogynistic. Chop it up, put it all over social media, accompanied with my massive fame, that things can absolutely not be taken out of context. I do not hate women in any regard. I have no negative relationship with women. No women have come forward saying I've hurt them. I have no criminal record for hurting women. There's no way I can be seen as the face or the devil in regards to how men treat women on the planet. I'm absolutely and utterly the opposite. I believe in protecting and providing. I've been misunderstood. There's been large contingents of people who have tried very hard to purport lies about me. And the truth of the matter is I've been producing content for a very long time. Hours and hours of videos been cut down to 2 or 3 seconds of clip. Those clips have gone viral and people misunderstand me.
But I think you've used this phrase of being taken out of context. And I'm not sure that is correct in the sense that it still comes out of your mouth. And some of the things you've said, I just think are blatantly.
Well, let's do them. Let's hear them.
Let's go through some.
Sure.
Right. So you said this about Me Too stroke rape. This is probably 40% of the reason I moved to Romania. In Eastern Europe, none of this garbage flies. You go to the police and say he raped me back in 1988. They'll say, well, you should have done something about it back then.
Yeah, so the point I was making was obviously at the height of the Me Too scandal, and also if we look at Amber Heard and Johnny Depp, there's been a lot of high-profile cases where men have been accused of things they did not do without evidence. Their lives have been completely and utterly destroyed.
Right.
When I say these things, people sit and say that, oh, he hates women. I don't hate women. I think rape is disgusting. I would take a stronger stance on rape than the British government. I think these people should face the death penalty. But to sit and say that women without evidence can go forward and just make up accusations against men, even though they've been repeatedly proven to destroy men's lives at will, is absolutely and utterly
What about a
asinine.
woman who was raped back in 1988 and goes to the police?
Then the man should face absolute and complete justice.
But you understand that when that clip appears on TikTok as a clip, and all right,
as a clip, completely.
Okay, but it's still something that came out of your mouth. You accept that when that appears on TikTok, a lot of young, maybe not as smart as you, young men, right, impressionable teenagers, will read that and go, what's he saying here? Is he saying that rape doesn't exist?
No, I completely. I'm not going to sit here as a professional and say that I can't be taken out of context. What I will say is that one small sentence you've taken was from a 1-hour video where I explained that, of course, rape is disgusting. Of course, everybody should be punished for their crimes regardless of when they happen. But people are not perfect, male and female. And if you give women the opportunity to destroy men's lives without evidence, there's going to be a contingent of women who will do that. I'm trying to make a balanced and nuanced argument in a world where people have no attention span. They're going to take a few seconds, put it online, decide someone's good or bad, not be interested in the longer format video. And here I am. I'm certainly a person who takes personal responsibility. That's who I am as a person. But we live in a world now with TikTok videos 5 or 6 seconds long. There's no content.
Do you think women are the property of men?
No. The point I was making.
Why have you said they are?
Because I made a religious point. I said that when a man marries a woman.
You see, the thing about online content, if you're not watching the long form and you're just watching clips, it can be taken way out of context. You understand where I'm coming from? So I advise people, instead of taking clips out of context, do try, if you can, find the long form of the video and watch it in its entirety. Because sometimes these little clips are taken out just to trigger and bait people into likes, commenting and sharing, and it creates more division between man and woman.
The woman's father walks her down the aisle and hands her away to the man. Traditionally, this is what it says in the Bible. I'm a religious person. I believe in God. I live in the most
So you do think that the woman becomes the man?
I think she takes his last name.
I mean, let's watch the clip that you said about this,
sure,
so that we can get it in context.
So I think my sister is her husband's property, yes. When a bride is walking down the aisle to marry the groom, the father walks next to her and gives her away. True or false?
Absolutely.
But I've been married twice, as it turns out, and on both occasions, I didn't believe that the woman was being handed to me as chattel, as property.
Perhaps the way the reason I'm asked that question repeatedly, and I'm asked in a loaded way.
So would you rephrase what you said there?
Now, that's a good interesting point about phrasing. The way I would say things before I was famous, I have to take personal responsibility and accept that if I make a video that 500 people see and 1% of them misunderstand it, that's not a problem. If I make a video that 5 million people see and 1% of them understand.
So specifically on that point, I think my sister is her husband's property.
She took his last name. She married him. She wanted to join his family. She has said it herself.
Right. So she's
still a sovereign individual. She's absolutely not a sovereign
property means that the husband owns your sister.
Listen, my friend, if we want to argue about this, you need to go back to the Bible, to the Quran. You need to argue with religious.
No, I'm not talking about anything in the Bible or Quran.
But that's what it says.
No, I'm asking you what you think.
I think that if a woman marries a man and she decides to take his last name, that they have different roles and responsibilities within that marriage, and I believe that.
That's not the question.
I believe the father. The father hands her.
Don't behave like a politician.
The father hands her to the man.
Right, but don't be a politician, because I think you're a straight talker, right? You keep telling me you're a straight talker. I think my sister is her husband's property. Do you regret saying it like that?
I understand that with my newfound fame, perhaps it could be phrased differently. However, I still believe that a woman is given.
Because honestly, I'm listening so far, and I don't see nothing that he said was wrong. I can see how it can be taken out of context, but I don't see nothing so far what I can say is wrong. But let's go on.
Man in marriage. That's what I believe.
Yeah, but not as property.
The property is the word that other people use when they ask me the question.
But as an equal partner in a loving union. That's what marriage actually means. It doesn't mean that when you get married, the woman is given to you as a bit of chattel.
Agreed.
So why say it? Surely, if you want to be accountable for what you said, you've got to own your responses, not blame the question.
I own the response.
Let me ask you a question now, and you say something, and then say, Well, actually, I blame you for
I
asking.
understand, Piers. Piers, I understand. I believe the woman is given to the man. I believe she's given away by the father. I believe she belongs to the man.
So you
if she belongs to the man.
Fundamentally, all right. So fundamentally, you do believe that a woman becomes a man's property.
I believe she belongs to the man in marriage, correct?
Right. You see, that to me is misogyny.
And you're entitled to your opinion.
Right. But do you not understand why people think it is misogyny?
I understand why some people can be very offended by what I say. What they do is they take a point like that and they ignore all the other points I make the other way around.
Yeah, but that's why I've repeatedly asked you about that line to see if you've changed your position. But the reality is you haven't.
It's not about changing positions. I'm a full-grown adult and I stick by the things I say and I'm responsible for them.
Which, by the way, is fine.
Absolutely.
But what you did say at the start of this little exchange, you said, I wouldn't maybe say things the same way now that I did before I was famous. And yet, actually, you've doubled down and said exactly the same thing.
On certain points.
So that is what you believe. That's my point.
Yes.
I'm trying to work out, look, I don't know you. We've just met, right?
Yeah.
I'm trying to work out who Andrew Tate is and what you actually believe.
I believe that. I also believe a man has a duty to protect and provide for her. I believe a man should lay down his life if something happens or his wife's life is threatened. I believe that women and children first are on the lifeboats.
But
I believe that men...
But a man doesn't own a woman.
It's not, no. It's,
and
okay.
if they literally buy them as a slave.
Well, obviously we're not talking about that. We're talking about religious, biblical marriage. We're talking about something else.
Yeah, but I'm a Christian. I don't believe that I own my wife.
Do you believe your wife was given away to you when she took your last name?
I believe that there is a process where a father traditionally walks his daughter down the aisle and hands his daughter to this man, and they stand there and become a union of two loving people in a partnership. No, there's no ownership involved.
I didn't say
he's not selling her. The father of the bride isn't selling his daughter.
No, absolutely.
Well, that's what property means.
She becomes a member of your family.
Is it?
I think we're arguing over semantics.
We're not, though, because fundamentally, I don't believe a man owns a woman. You do.
Well, I don't think a man owns any sovereign individual. I don't think we live in the world of slavery. I don't own any.
I can see why people say Andrew Tate was getting triggered during this interview. But if you've watched a lot of Andrew Tate's content, you would kind of see this is how he normally talks. Maybe today is a little bit on the edge because maybe he wasn't prepared for Piers Morgan. But normally, this is how he talks. This is how he is. Mannerism, characteristics. You understand where I'm coming from? But the only difference is he's not wearing his top G glasses today. He's not wearing his top G glasses so you can see his eyes. You understand? But you can tell he's getting a little bit antsy, And Piers, let the man talk. Piers don't want the man to talk whatsoever, bro. Mad thing.
Or anyone.
Right.
Nobody owns
But when
anybody.
you use phrases like property, that's what you imply.
I understand.
And so my point again is, you're a smart guy, right?
Correct.
There's no denying that. You're smart, you're a good talker, I've seen a lot of the stuff. But what I don't think you quite fully understand.
No, I understand very well.
When young, impressionable people
who
are not as smart see things like, I think my sister is her husband's property, yes, and you've just reaffirmed that belief. They think that they have the right to own women.
I understand that very well, Piers.
That's why people think you're a misogynist.
Completely. I understand all of this very well, which is why when you're saying I was backtracking, I'm not.
Do you have any regret, though, over the way you phrased this stuff?
Well, this is the point I was trying to make. The point I'm trying to make is, when I was not nearly as famous and I was making long format content, it's not about, you're asking me, you're saying that young people who are
impressive. If you said to me, look, Piers, honestly, I've had time to think about this and I wish I hadn't said it, I don't believe that. That's one thing. Actually, you've said the opposite. You said, actually, that's what I think, yeah.
I think that when
it doesn't really matter whether you recorded it when you're famous or not famous. It's what you actually believe, right?
I believe that a man has a duty to protect and provide for a woman. I believe that a woman's father gives her away to the man. That's what I believe, and that's in my marriage. That's the circumstance I'm going to live under. If people want to live in a different scenario, that's completely theirs. Their prerogative.
You went on to say about authority over women. If I have a responsibility over her, I must have a degree of authority. Yeah. For the same reason, if I have responsibility over and people are going to use their mind, it's an example, an analogy. Responsibility over a child, I have to have some authority. Yeah. So you believe as part of your ownership or your property of the woman, you have authority over her.
The point I'm making, if you'll please let me finish on this point. The point I was trying to make was talking about the safety of a woman. She was walking alone at night, and I was saying, well, I wouldn't let my woman walk alone at night. And they said, well, you're not in charge of her. You don't get to decide what she does. I said, I understand, but if I'm responsible for her safety, and I'm the person who's burdened with making sure she is safe, I have to have the authority to say, don't put yourself in unsafe situations. The two things are linked.
Well, you have authority. You can absolutely have the right to say to the woman you're with, I don't think you should. But ultimately,
if she decides, then I can't force her.
Right. So authority implies that you have the ability to control someone.
No, authority the authority implies that I have the moral right to sit and say that that's an irresponsible thing to do, and I'm responsible.
That's not what authority means.
Well, I'm not going to. If you think I'm going to lock somebody up in their room, is that what you're implying?
No, I don't think you know what authority means.
I know what it means. I'm saying that if
It's just a different description of what authority
if I have responsibility for her safety, then I have to have the authority to tell her not to do unsafe.
Yeah, but authority means that you have some form of control over this woman.
I think what you're trying to
I'm only trying to get to what you think. Honestly, I am. I come with no agenda here at all.
I understand. And I'm explaining very, very clearly. If I have responsibility over said subject, I have to have authority over it. So let me say you have children, right?
Right.
You have responsibility for them.
No, I have legal authority over my children. That is
Bro,
very different
Piers
having
has an
legal authority
agenda.
over my wife or my female partner.
Completely. But the point I'm trying to make,
So you accept that?
I accept that
Because you used the analogy of responsibility for a child.
my friend, these are very
These are actually really important things.
they're important things, but you interrupt me every 5 seconds. So it's hard for me to actually explain my point. The point I'm making here is very simple. You have children and you're responsible for
Yo, Pop G sweating. Can't lie. And let me show you how bad it is, because this is what mainstream media do, right? This is what people do when they're trying to discredit you. He's obviously using Andrew Tate Schultz content as a weapon. You understand where I'm coming from, right? So he's trying to use his own words to discredit him, right? With the backing of obviously people that claim, say, you know, he's pushing a toxic masculinity agenda. You understand where I'm coming from? The cancel culture. You get me? But at the end of the day, like, the man has his opinion and he shouldn't be cancelled because he has his opinion, right? There's women out there online spewing hatred, misandry towards men, but they're not being cancelled.
authority, legal authority. I'm saying that if I had a woman, and the question where you've raised this soundbite from, I was asked, because I'm responsible for her safety, and someone said, well, you don't have authority over her to do that. I said, well, no, I can't force her to stay inside. But if she were to ask me, how do I protect myself at night? I would say, well, you should stay inside. That's how you should do it.
I don't have an issue with what
So
you
we
said.
agree.
No.
It's the semantics.
No, it's not semantics. And this is what I don't think
It's
you quite
semantics,
get
man.
why there's a furore over what you say. With respect. Because the semantics point would be we're saying the same thing in different ways. But we're not. I'm saying to you that when you say I have to have some authority over a woman, I say to you, you have no right to any authority over a woman. You do over a child if it's your child, because you are the legal appointed guardian of that child.
Understood.
You're not a legally appointed guardian or authority over your wife or female partner.
Legally appointed, absolutely not. I agree. However, when it comes to things like personal responsibility or personal safety, men, largely by society, are accepted. We're the protectors and providers. We can sit here and pretend that in the world we live in, if me and my wife were walking down the street and men were to come up and try and attack us, I wouldn't be the one fighting. But we both know in reality I would.
Right.
I have a degree of responsibility to protect her. So if I have a degree of responsibility,
And yeah, I agree with that wholeheartedly. You understand? You're not my property, but if you're my wife and I'm supposed to protect and provide for the family, I do expect to have some level of authority over you. Because at the end of the day, you as my wife, you want me to be a leader. And for me to be a leader, I must have some form of authority over you, regardless how you want to put it.
to protect her physically, then the point I'm trying to make is I will do my best to make sure she's never putting herself in unsafe
You wish you
situations.
hadn't used the word authority.
The authority is something that she would give to me. She would come to me and say, how can I make sure I'm as safe as possible?
Look, I don't want to interrupt you. I just want to point out that's not what authority means.
If someone gives, a person can give
voluntary authority is not authority.
No, but that's the point. If
It's
a
not.
woman, Piers,
Andrew, it's not.
Piers, if a woman comes to me and says, I want you to keep me safe, she is handing me authority for her safety.
But do you understand the difference between having authority over somebody and somebody giving you permission to have authority?
Completely. I never said
one is consensual and one is...
But why are we pretending I do unconsensual things?
Because you literally say, I must have a degree of authority. I have to have some authority. And the point...
Only if I'm responsible for her safety. If I'm not responsible for her safety, I don't have authority.
If your position now is that with her permission, I would like to have authority when we go out at night to protect her, that's a different
That was
thing.
always my position.
But that's not what you said.
But that was always my position.
So again, I simply say to you,
It is what I said.
Do you wish you'd phrased it a different way?
No, because we're talking about long format copy where I'm talking about a woman who has come to me and said, you're responsible for making sure I'm safe. I said, well, then I have to make the decisions.
When an 18-year-old boy reads, I must have some authority over a woman, what do you think he thinks?
Well, I understand that. And I said this earlier when you tried to say I was backtracking, which I'm not doing.
No, actually, I'm not. I don't want to.
Okay.
I'm not trying to gotcha you.
Cool.
I'm trying to work out exactly what you.
I understand with massive fame comes massive responsibility. I understand that a percentage of the population are always going to take everything that's said by anybody out of context.
Would you change the wording of what you said?
No, I would just encourage people to watch my long format copy and understand it.
Would you tell an 18-year-old boy you don't have authority over women?
Absolutely.
You would say that?
Unless a woman comes to him and says, you're responsible for my safety, please make sure keep me safe. Like
I see, that Andrew Tate I can sign up to.
Well, then we agree.
Yeah, but I don't agree with what you said before.
Because you're taking a soundbite from a 2-hour
conversation. But you haven't been taken out of context, because I read you the entire sentence. It's very
Well, you've ignored all the context around the sentence, my friend.
You can't ignore a sentence that says, I must have a degree of authority.
But you can when there's a 2-hour conversation where a woman is telling me if she makes me responsible for her safety, and me explaining, well, if I'm responsible for your safety, I have the authority to make decisions. So yes, you've ignored all the context.
Do you respect women?
Absolutely. Why wouldn't I?
Do you think that 18, 19-year-old women are more attractive than 25-year-old women?
I think there's attractive people. That's a loaded question. I don't know.
Well, it's not really.
I can't.
You know why I'm asking?
Of course I do, but I can't sit here and
say. For the benefit of viewers who don't know why I'm asking, you said this. In general, this is also one of the reasons men find youth attractive. You want to blow up the internet? I'll blow up the internet right effing now. The reason 18 and 19-year-olds are more attractive than 25-year-olds is because they've been through less dick. People say, oh, you can't say that. Yes, I can. A 19-year-old is more attractive than a 26-year-old woman, and I'll tell you why. Because that 26-year-old has talked to more guys, been to the club more times, been effed and dumped more times, more arguments, more mess, more for me to clean up. That is misogyny. Why? Because you are encouraging a mindset about 25-year-old women that makes them sound out to be...
Listen, I don't know what's wrong in that.
Emotional
damage. Don't shoot. I'm telling you, because it don't make no sense. How the hell do you get from 20 to 35 and you ain't learned to cooperate with a man? It makes no sense to me. So is it the men's fault or is it your fault? But people need to look at themselves. And the man has got a point. You get me? If you're 20 and somebody's 35, and don't forget, the exception don't make the rule. Likely scenario, the 20-year-old has been through less
emotional
damage and baggage than somebody in their late 20s, early 30s. 35, and as I said, the exception don't make the rule. There's some females out there in the 30s and that's got a low body count. You understand? I'm just saying.
Infinitely less desirable than 18, 19-year-olds and having effectively been having too much sex to be taken in a more respectful way.
Well, firstly, even if that was the case, that wouldn't be misogyny.
But what did you mean by what you said?
That's not misogyny because it's not anti-women. I'm saying that an 18 or a 19-year-old woman would be more desirable.
Pretty anti-25-year-old woman.
Anti-25-year-old women we can argue, but not misogyny.
Well, that's misogyny.
No, it's not.
Being anti any woman at all is misogyny.
Not when I'm saying that women are beautiful and attractive at a certain age. It's saying the age.
You're saying 18, 19-year-olds are more attractive than 25.
Well, than ageist perhaps, but misogynistic absolutely.
Is that
not.
But you just accepted it was misogyny.
No, I didn't. You said it was misogyny. I'm telling you, no, it's not.
So you don't think if you're saying slightly hateful things about a 25-year-old...
That's not slightly hateful.
Well, it is. You think you say that to a woman's face if she's 25?
It's not slightly hateful.
So you would go up to a 25-year-old woman and tell her exactly what I just read out.
Why would I walk up to a random 25-year-old
Because you said it in public on the internet and it's been listened to and watched by millions and millions of young impressionable boys.
Correct. There was a large panel. There was a conversation. There was hours long of conversation. There were feminists attacking men for toxic masculinity and attacking me and saying things. And I said things back which were going to antagonize
them.
Which you've done yourself a bunch of times.
I think a lot of allegations of toxic masculinity are not toxic.
Correct.
I do think that kind of sentence I just read out, that paragraph, is actually toxic. If you genuinely mean that, and you say you wouldn't say it to a woman's face, but you said it in public about women of that age, I do think that's misogynist. And I think you probably do too.
I don't think it's misogynistic. I understand why it can be insulting.
So you wouldn't say it to a woman's face?
Well, it depends. You're making out like I'm walking around the street going up to random 25.
Well, you're doing it to tens of millions of people online. There's no difference.
Yo, listen. Free the man them. That's all I got to say, bro. Free the man there. Because the way how man like Pierce is going on, you know.
That's right, in their teens. Are you comfortable that they would have that mindset? Be honest.
I think that young boys in their teens lack life experience. They lack nuance. And they need to be very, very careful what they're digesting online, whether it's my content or anybody else's.
I think you know for a fact millions of them are digesting exactly what you're saying.
Completely. The entire internet to a degree. I think any subject you can find, there's going to be a whole heap of
I come back to the Joe Rogan thing, actually. Is that a lot of what you say, I agree with.
Yeah.
Right? I do. Genuinely. I've read a lot. I've read a lot of stuff you say. A lot of the stuff you talk about, I think, yeah, it's got a good point. Right? So we agree about a lot of things. But when I read that kind of thing, I'm like, how much of that is you? How much of that is some act? Do you regret saying stuff like this?
I don't.
And actually, do you see it as weakness to admit you shouldn't have said something like that?
No, I don't live with regret.
Yes, people, silent business. You know what time it is. That was literally, well, it's not the end of the video, but I will leave a link in the video. So if you want to go and watch the full video, you can literally go and watch it. But I suggest you do. You know what I mean? Like, don't take the little bit of what you've seen and go misjudge Pierce or go misjudge Andrew. You know, I'll suggest you go watch both of their content for yourself. Make a decision for yourself. Pierce says he agrees with a lot of what Andrew says, but it's just specific things that he's got a problem with. So what I'm saying is this, and even Pierce has a problem with Andrew Tate being banned for his opinions. The man has his opinion. Everybody's opinion is valid. That don't mean it's right. This is why you have your own mind to think for yourself. Yeah? You can't let society, the government, and these people at the top that are pushing buttons and can cancel you at any time dictate your life. You cannot do that. Freedom and them. Silent business. You know what time it is.
Just a messenger.
Don't shoot.